Hi, I'm Adrian and welcome back to another video on piano. In the last video, I looked at the A section of Tchaikovsky's January, and in this video, I'm going to look at the B section, which is the development, the reprise of the A section, and then the coda, so the rest of the piece, in other words. By now, you probably realize that I'm an amateur pianist, and actually my main job is in art. So I'm interested in the crossover between art and music and other arts like literature. And when I was making this video and I was thinking about a thumbnail, the image that sprung to mind was Aivazovsky's Winter Landscape. So Aivazovsky is a very famous Russian painter. He's actually one of Russia's favorite painter, according to a recent poll. And when I looked up this painting just to check to see when it was painted, it also happened to be 1876, the same year as the publication of Tchaikovsky's The Seasons. So then I thought, well, maybe Aivazovsky and Tchaikovsky knew each other, which they certainly did, but I was curious to know, did they ever meet? And I couldn't find any evidence of that, but it seems like it's possible. You know, their paths would have crossed in St. Petersburg, and Aivazovsky was well known to lots of the other artistic people in Russia at the time. He met Pushkin, he met Chekhov, Dostoevsky praised him, and even beyond Russia, he was very well known. The painter j.m.w. Turner, who I'm sure you know, even wrote a poem to honor him. And just some of the lines of this are l'arte tu è bene potente perché il genio t'inspiro. So this was from Turner's poem, and it means, so good and potent is your art because only genius could have inspired you. That's a rough English translation. So yeah, I couldn't find any information or any definite information on whether Tchaikovsky and Aivazovsky met, but it's nice to think that maybe they did. So getting it back into this piece, January, I've gone through the A section. In the B section, things change, and maybe first of all, I'll just play you maybe a few bars of the end of the A section as it comes then into the B section to show you how the music and the mood, the atmosphere changes. So that's how this transitions from the A section to the B section. So just to this chord here, which is basically C major, but in the context here, it is a German sixth when we add the A sharp at the end of this little line. This A sharp here. And then we go into this leggerissimo bar, which is kind of free. So let me take it from the B section, the start of the B section. And then we go back to that opening of the B section again. So, yeah, this is, normally I don't think about like imagine or put kind of words or ideas on different parts of music. But in this particular area here, it's hard not to think about the Pushkin epigraph and the subtitle By the Fireside, because suddenly we have this very still chord and the sound kind of drops, fades away. And then this leggerissimo section or bar, so leggerissimo means very delicately, and this is a very kind of whimsical bar, and it kind of evokes the idea of maybe just the last flames or traces of smoke just fading away from the fire as the fire burns out, as the epigraph goes. So it's marked PP here. Pianissimo or very quiet, which is quite difficult to do, to play it very, very quiet in a very, very light way. And I should say as well that the B section, the overall tempo changes. It's now meno mosso, so less movement. So in other words, we had moderato, and now we have less movement, this very still, static kind of feel. And then very quiet. Sorry, I missed that. So again, you can see that I'm still practicing. On the second one, the first one goes up, and the second one goes down. So the fingering for this leggerissimo section, well, the first one goes up the way. So, and then the second one descends. And there was different fingerings that I've seen for this, but I actually watched two performances of this piece, one by Sviatoslav Richter and the other by Denis Matsuev. And in the Richter recording, which was from a festival called December Nights in Moscow in 1982, it's interesting because I can actually see what fingers he's using, and he breaks it this way, basically. So obviously the first few notes are left hand, then right hand, and then left hand takes over here, and then he crosses over with the right hand and ends with the thumb. Now, that's quite comfortable, but maybe the only disadvantage is just jumping back up for this chord again. So all together. Anyway, as I said, it needs a little bit of practice, and certainly it's difficult to get those very light fingers on that kind of arpeggio. So then what happens, we have that still kind of music, and then it breaks into this rhapsodic pass or section, basically, which is, I'll just play from the end, the bar before, which goes. and then we're back into this. Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention there, in that very still area, there's quite a lot of tempo rubato used. So, and there are changes of tempo every kind of section. So you can take a lot of time there, or speed up, slow down. So there's flexibility there. But in this, the next section that I played there, yeah, it kind of, it breaks free all of a sudden, and we passed through some interesting keys. So I think the best way of understanding this is by kind of looking at the last chord of each section. So it starts off where it moves into A flat to begin with, starting with D flat, then to E flat 7th, then to A flat, and then to a lovely B minor or B flat minor 7th chord, and then back to E flat 7th, and then a repeat of that. And here it jumps to F minor. So the same thing again, but up higher. So on that section there, we have, just to go back over it, we jump to F minor, or sorry, up to the A flat, then to G flat, G 7th, and then to C minor with E flat in the bass, and then to this, again, it's another flat 6 chord. And then back, and that's the end of that kind of intersection. Then we're back to our static, quiet music. And then it changes here. This time we've got just a single E note on the first beat. And then this augmented chord. And it goes now into a B major. The same material, but kind of in B major. So there at the end, there's some tricky, quick changes of fingering before we get to this chromatic scale, which goes all the way up to F sharp, which started the piece, and then we stop, and there's a bar, a full bar rest, so as if time is kind of suspended. So we have this chromatics, or I'll just play it from the start of the bar. back into the opening A section material again. So just in these kind of rhapsodic areas, it's worth pointing out as well that that hemiola idea that I spoke about in the first video comes back, and I'll just even play the melody notes. We have this kind of like 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and, except each one of those is over 2 bars. So and so on. So anyway, we're back to the A section on the last 2 pages here. And that's exactly as it was before. So those last 2 bars there are just a kind of a bridge before the coda. And it feels strange to hear this again. It's a little tiresome, maybe. And that brings us to the end of the piece. So what happened there? The coda begins here, by the way. Sorry. That's a little bit awkward there. There's some weird, a little bit difficult, the fingering. Because I'm changing from 5 to 4 and 1 to 2 at the same time on that. So I have 5, 1, then to 2 to 5 becoming 4, and then have my 5th finger free for the E. And then at the end, that kind of wispy smoke-like effect comes back, but now in A major. And also that very still static chord comes back there. And it's also this flat 6. So the flat 6 chord plays a major role in the harmonic kind of scheme of this piece. And finally, and just a fermata on the very last chord there. So that's the entire piece. So it's just an introduction to the piece. I will make another video that will go deeper into the harmonic and rhythmic and melodic analysis of the music, which is very interesting actually. But that's for another day. And when I get to practice it more and learn it properly, I might record it and just put it up on my channel as just as a piece without me talking, just the music itself. As I mentioned, normally about recordings and other performances, normally I would, if I don't know the piece, I would listen to it first of all, just once to see, do I want to learn it? And in this case, I knew January, but I listened to Sviatoslav Richter play it, just to hear it from beginning to end. And then maybe a week ago or something, I saw Denis Matsuev play it in Amsterdam from the 2010s. I can't remember the year. So they're on YouTube if you just search them, those two performances. But with Matsuev's performance was very, very flexible, you know, in terms of tempi. You know, it was very, very, it's quite free in a lot of places, you know, but I would try to play it pretty strict. And then as I get to know it and when I start thinking about interpretation, I would, you know, start to push and pull the music a little bit. And finally, just one last thing on that tempo rubato. The idea of tempo rubato, or robbed time, is where if you take time from one bar or area, you give it back somewhere else. So you might slow down in one area and then later on speed up so that overall the amount of time is the same. But there is an argument that that's not the case at all. And I think Paderewski, he said something like, basically, you can just take the time. You don't need to make it back up again. Because there are, as I said, there's a lot of areas here, not only tempo changes between different sections, but then different markings like ritenuto, which is held back, or leggerissimo, which is in a very free kind of ad lib way. I also forgot to mention as well there, for that quite rhapsodic passage, this is marked poco stringendo, which means pushing forward. So there's a sense of kind of urgency about it. And then ritenuto for that chromatic run at the end. And then the silence, and then we're back to tempo 1 of the A section. So there are a lot of tempo changes there, but really, first of all, I need to get it under my fingers and know it fluently before I can broach those kind of finer points. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do on this channel, don't forget to subscribe and like the video, leave a comment and let me know what you think. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you.